This is Weirdly Enough, your regular podcast for strange stories and amazing facts, delivered straight to your favorite podcast directory and at weirdlyenough.com. Now, here are your hosts, Andy and Len.
Welcome to the next thrilling installment of Weirdly Enough. Remember, you can get our podcast now on YouTube. Just search Weirdly Enough Podcast. They're all up there. Go and look, do comment and subscribe if you want to. You can also search anywhere you get your favorite podcast for Weirdly Enough or Weirdly Enough Podcast, and you will find us. Do subscribe, please, and then you will get it delivered into your, is it a mailbox? Into your podcast directory every time we drop a new podcast, which is roughly once a week. So that's good. Today we're going to be looking at a subject I know nothing about. It's called Creepypasta, and I'm joined by Leon in the studio today, who's going to tell us a little bit about what Creepypasta is. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
It's quite an interesting concept. I don't like the name, to be honest. I think the name is kind of really odd and kind of off-putting, like, you know. But Creepypastas, they're basically like horror-themed kind of stories. It's a very internet kind of based thing.
Okay.
And basically, I mean, they started off sort of about 10 years ago. Yeah. Mainly on things like Reddit, it became a thing.
Yeah.
And there's things like, you know, like what they call no sleep stories.
Right.
And they're basically,
because they're so scary.
Because they're so scary, yeah. It's become a big thing on YouTube now, where you get like channels where people will read them out. Yeah. Like there's a guy called Dr. Creepin that's actually quite good. And Dr. No Sleep as well.
Dr. No
and they
Sleep.
kind of, and they have kind of wee daft kind of animations and stuff. And it actually works quite well, like, you know. Now they can be very short, or they can be massively long. Like, I mean, some of the ones that guy Dr. Creepin does, I mean, you could be talking like an hour and a half.
Right. Okay.
Or else, and then Dr. No Sleep. Those ones are very short. If you ever come across there seems to be a bit of an influence from, you know, like Japanese urban legends, which was a thing that was kind of popularized through the internet. It's like a kind of they're like a more kind of brief kind of version of normal urban legends,
right.
And, you know, kind of quirky that way, like, you know, haiku almost,
really?
Right. Creepypasta, it's a portmanteau of the words creepy and copypasta, and copypasta denotes viral copied and pasted text. Right. Apparently it was coined in 4chan around 2006. Okay. So it's quite a, you know, an old thing, but it's become very popular lately. The Momo challenge sort of came out of that.
Yeah, I was actually googling Momo challenge when I was thinking about it. Momo.
Do you remember that was a big thing a few years ago?
It was ridiculous because I used to look at that picture, that creature thing, and just laugh. But apparently it scared a lot of people. But to me, it just looked like some...
It's actually from a sculpture.
Yeah, with bird hands and stuff. It just looks ridiculous.
And it's basically a hoax. And it's under that urban legends, but it's one of these things that start off as a bit of fun. Yeah. But like, sort of gathered pace, and then you got sort of gullible people sort of latching on that. I remember the time the PSNI put out a warning on their Facebook page for people not to do the Momo challenge. It
was like you had to do self-harm or something if you saw Momo, wasn't it?
Yeah.
People...
But it's, again, it's one of these things. It's like people get very easily influenced. Yes. It's like, you know, the old kind of heavy metal kind of records that like allegedly caused people to do stuff, you know, because it was like backmasking and stuff like that. You know, but it's all sort of nonsense, like, you know.
What's the Slenderman? I see that coming up quite a lot.
The Slenderman's an interesting one. It was actually quite skillfully done. It was done, it was originally created by a guy called Eric Kinson, also known as Victor Surge, in 2009. And he basically created it on June the 10th, 2009 on a thread in the Something Awful internet forum. Right. And basically the thread was a Photoshop contest in which users were challenged to create paranormal images. Yeah. So they basically said, you know, kind of create an image for Photoshop that's a bit scary. So he contributed 2 black and white images of groups of children, to which he added a tall, thin, spectral figure wearing a black suit. Yeah. And what he did was he supplemented his submission with snatches of text, supposedly from witnesses describing the abduction of groups of children and giving the character the name the Slenderman. And he actually put a little quote. You can actually look that up under the. It's quite well done. It's kind of a creepy, almost like. The quote under the first photograph read, "We didn't want to go, we didn't want to kill them, but its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. 1983 photographer unknown, presumed dead." And the quote under the second photograph read, "One of two recovered photographs from Stirling City Library, I can't even speak, Library Place, notable for being taken the day when 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as the Slenderman." So yeah, there you go. But he was inspired to create the Slenderman by Jack Parsons' That Insidious Beasts.
Was Lovecraft kind of...
And Lovecraft was...
too?
Yeah, and so was WMS Burroughs. And also video games like Silent Hill and Resident Evil. So it was basically there's different sort of influences, like, you know.
It's a big cosplay thing.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a lot of cosplay. But you do need to be thin, that's the thing. You can't be a fatty to be the Slender Man.
Probably help if you're quite tall as well. But
some of these guys, you know, they're... You know, look at him, he's a bit bulging shoulders and all. No, you need to be quite skinny, I think.
But it's an interesting idea. It's the idea that you can start off just with like a random idea, like a discussion on an internet forum, and now it becomes this whole kind of thing
people are
itself,
terrified
you know?
about it. Wasn't Slenderman a movie? Did they make a movie of it?
I think they might have done, yeah. Hang on
Straight
a
to
second.
video, yeah. 2018 it was a video, Slenderman. Sony Pictures brought it out. The first thing that comes up on Google when you search for Slenderman is how bad is the Slenderman movie? How bad is it?
It sounds pretty rubbish, to be honest. Like,
yeah.
But obviously there has been sort of slightly disturbing kind of cases where like people have copied stuff, but we'll not go into that. But it's about depressing. But no, it's an interesting thing because I mean the internet's like it kind of hosts like a whole lot of this kind of what I would call kind of new kind of storytelling, I suppose you could call it.
Yes.
I mean one of the big things I came across is, have you ever heard of ARGs?
ARGs, no, what's that?
It's alternate reality game.
Okay.
They call them, and I came across this because I was looking for material just for this podcast. Yeah. And there's a number of good channels like what's the name of it? Nexpo is a very good one. And it stands for like Nighttime Expo.
Right. Okay.
And it's a guy, he does sort of investigations into sort of internet based kind of alternate reality games where it's basically like they create kind of whole kind of, it's a bit like the kind of idea of Creepypasta. Yeah. Only it's more based around you know, like websites and YouTube channels and stuff like that.
Okay.
I mean there's another good one. Again, this is a new thing, it's becoming a thing on Twitter now where people tell these stories through Twitter. So somebody will put a Twitter post up in character. Yeah. Okay. And it's almost like real time kind of storytelling, like, you know, it's quite interesting that way, like, you know.
So what other creepypastas are there, just to get back to it again?
Yeah, there's an interesting one, the SCP Foundation, which is basically, again, this is a thing that's one of the things you find interesting about creepypastas is they start off as a very small thing and they just expand because so many people get involved. Okay. And they kind of add their own bits to it. So you know, you get one idea and it creates a whole universe out of it. And the SCP Foundation it's a fictional organisation, and it's Secure, Capture and Protect, it stands for. And supposedly this organisation that was founded years ago to, like, you know, identify kind of mysterious phenomena and kind of secured and investigate and research it. And it's like got its own wiki, and it's sort of it's become this whole, it's very bizarre if you've never sort of come across this before, and it's like a new thing to you. And there's things like it's all done by code, so it's SCP-0555, and it's described as something that causes anyone who examines it to forget its various characteristics, thus making it indescribable except in terms of what it is not. SCP-249 is a coffee machine that can dispense anything that does or can exist in liquid form. SCP-426 is a toaster that can only be referred to in the first person. Right. SCP-173 is a humanoid statue composed of concrete and spray paint, and it's stationary when directly observed, but it attacks people and snaps their neck when the line of sight with it is broken. It's extremely fast to the point where it can move multiple meters while the observer is blinking.
Yeah.
So it's very strange. I mean, it is like a full-on rabbit hole.
Very odd.
I mean, you can look at the website itself, but then it's spread to YouTube, and people who are completely unconnected with the original thing are doing their own little YouTube explorations of it and adding more stuff on.
Right.
As the
growing all the time.
Yeah, so it's an interesting concept, you know, how somebody can come up with a very simple idea. And the thing I like about SCP is it's not as sinister as you say the things like the Momo thing. They went a bit sinister, and you got all these people kind of doing these kind of copycat things. Whereas the SCP is more kind of, it's just more kind of intellectual of it. Okay. It makes any sense, like, you know.
So these things kind of like fan fiction. Do people pick them up and write their kind of own little stories on it, or you know, once it's up there, is that the end of it, or do people kind of add to it? And
well, they sort of develop over time. I mean, one example was Jeff the Killer. Yeah, that was supposedly this guy that
Who
was
like, Jeff the Killer.
Well, him and his brother were being attacked by billies. Jeff fought them, beat them up quite badly. He was attacked by the billies again in the cycle of revenge. Right. Managed to kill all of this villains, so it escalated quite quickly. Yes. And he was severely burned during the confrontation because they set him on fire. Right. So it's a bit sinister. Yeah.
But he got his own back then.
Yeah, he ended up staying in the hospital, but he kind of turned to the dark side. Right. Because he realised that he actually enjoyed hurting people, which is a bit sinister.
Yes, it is.
So he was discharged, and then for no apparent reason, he sliced his face off, leaving a scar in the shape of a smile, and cut off his eyelids for some reason. Right. Because he didn't want to sleep ever again. Again, this makes absolutely no sense. I don't really know how.
So are these like you can find these on the internet and go and read them then if that's your thing?
They change over time, and people write their own little bits, and then people claim they've met Jeff the Killer.
All right.
Even though he doesn't exist.
And then there's Ted the Caver. Is he a real person? Is he somebody that actually goes into caves, or who's he?
I would argue that Ted the Caver is probably the oldest creepypasta. Okay. Because it began as an Angel Fire website. I have no idea what that is.
I remember GeoCities or GeoCities and Angel Fire, like really old build your own website kind of things back in the day.
Very early internet. I mean, this is the days of like bulletin boards and things like that. Early 2001. Now, this allegedly is documenting the adventures of a man and his friends that explored a local cave, and it's done in the format of blog posts. And they go in the cave, and strange things happened. Strange occurrences, hieroglyphs, strange writings on the walls, and strange winds and strange creatures and whatnot. So there's a last blog post where Ted writes his companions aren't determined to investigate what's going on, and this time they're bringing guns. And also he reckons there's something very supernatural going on because they're all experiencing these weird hallucinations. That's the final blog post.
And so it's never heard of again.
Again, it's one of these things people claim, oh, you know, I knew Ted the Caver. Yeah. Even though Ted the Caver never existed. And then you'll see photographs. Oh, what's the last picture of Ted the Caver? Even though he doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's just one of the interesting things about it is it's like it's a sort of interface of kind of reality and kind of fantasy. Okay. You know, so it's kind of interesting that way, like, you know.
So if people want to find out more creepypasta, they can go to creepypasta.com, I believe, but there's also YouTube channels and stuff if they search around for it.
Say, to be honest, I would say if you're completely new to the whole genre, probably the best way to start is actually for YouTube. Okay. Because it's you can go on these channels where you're not having to kind of scroll through those tags and stuff. You can have guys. I mean, that guy Dr. Creepin is very good. Yeah. Because he's very kind of relaxed and sinister.
Brilliant.
And you can kind of really get into the kind of stories. It actually works as very kind of modern kind of storytelling, like, you know.
Brilliant. Well, I'm sure our subscribers will go and check that out. If you have any creepypasta stories you want us to have a look at, podcast@weirdlyenough.com. You can get in touch with us on the socials as well. We're on Facebook, just search for Weirdly Enough Podcast, or we're Weirdly Enough PC on Twitter. Thanks for listening. I've got a few short snippets and weird stories coming up right after this. So I always like to have a bit of a look around and see what weird stories there are in the news. It's generally the red tops, but all sorts of other places as well. I get resources, and this one was from Wales, Cardiff. A father has been left appalled following a visit to a sweet shop in Cardiff with his 10-year-old daughter after discovering the shop sold a whole range of saucy treats, penis-shaped lollipops, chocolates.
Sorry, can I just interrupt?
What? Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm reading it aside.
I know, but it's meant to be a family-friendly podcast.
Oh, is it? Right. Well, we can...
Did my ears deceive me what you were just saying? I just imagined what you were just saying there.
There was jelly super sperms as well.
That's disgusting.
All available for purchase, as well as a candy willy. This was all available in the shop, like by the till. It wasn't stuck down some back room or anything. This was in Cardiff. The dad told the local paper he wasn't a prude, but was extremely surprised to find the sweets on full display right next to the till. He said it's stuff he'd half expected to find now in Summers, but not in a sweet shop.
Might be a bit down market for Alan Summers.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And you know those new doorbells that people have now that have videos in them.
Oh God, no.
Well, you'll see footage on YouTube of would-be robbers spotted by the home security, and they run off.
Yeah.
But there's a whole compilation of videos featuring thieves trying to steal Amazon and other home shopping packages. But now a thief of a different caliber has been spotted by security cameras making off with an Amazon package from a front door in Bristol. But this isn't Bristol, England. It's Bristol, Connecticut. A bear can be seen on the video shared on Facebook carrying away an Amazon package. I'm wondering though if the animal was worried about another lockdown panic buying session coming, as the package contained toilet paper. People were buying toilet paper off Amazon instead of just going to the local.
Can you? I don't even know.
7-Eleven.
I don't even know you could buy it off Amazon.
You can buy everything on Amazon.
Yeah,
everything. I think in America they use it far more for groceries, which is a bit odd. But yeah, I suppose. Yeah, why not? And I love this. This is. Why is it right that people can't just get some sort of simple celebration when their offspring reach another year? They all have to try these extravagant celebrations with parties and cakes and all that, and presents and people over and stuff like that. So a lot of unnecessary faff, I think, when most kids would prefer 20 Benson Hedges and a quarter bottle of vodka.
Definitely, yeah.
Anyway, some of these parents took to TikTok after they arranged a party visitor that didn't go to plan. See, what they did was organise a full-sized Bigfoot.
What? Look, what do you mean a full-sized Bigfoot?
It was like a full-sized person dressed as
right,
Bigfoot.
Yeah, not like actual Bigfoot.
Not the one himself. Inexplicably, he was wearing a tutu to appear. He appeared at a window before being ushered inside to give the 6-year-old daughter her gift. The event didn't go to plan, however, as mass panic broke out amongst all the kids at the party, with screaming and shouting, and some social media users went on to say the kids would need therapy. Have a search for it online. It's rather fun. It is crazy. All the kids running about and all. What were they thinking?
What were they thinking?
Is what we'll end this podcast on again. What's the one about next week? Do we know yet?
Yes, it's about, are we living in a simulation?
Are we living in a simulation? Simulation theory and all of that. That sounds interesting. I can't wait to cover that. We'll be back next week. Do search and subscribe, Weirdly Enough Podcast.
Thanks for listening to Weirdly Enough. Remember to subscribe to get the latest edition as soon as it drops. And don't forget to leave a review. Email us about anything we've discussed or with your own weird tale at podcast@weirdlyenough.com.